What's going on, everybody? My name's Encore. This is your daily reminder that tomorrow never comes, meaning none of our tomorrows are guaranteed. So let's get out there. Let's do what we want to do, what we've been putting off to do at some unknown time in the future, and get it done today. For me and this channel, crypto space, crypto arena, however you want to phrase it, anything to do with crypto, that is what I discuss, because I feel like that's not something you need to put off or should put off for some later date in the future. Okay, it's too important. We are still extremely early. Best time to get in is now. Best time to get in actually was yesterday. Second best time is today. So the whole goal of me and this of what I plan to offer in this channel is really just to push you guys to educate yourself. Nothing I offer is financial advice. This is stuff that you guys need to do your research on, and I want to nudge you in that direction. You know, sometimes you don't have enough information, or you hear a lot of negativity around something, or you hear too many good things. It's too hype, it seems too good to be true, and so you never jump in. So I kind of want to dispel a lot of the things that are out there and lay out some fundamentals, right? That's the whole point. Let's give the basics, because you can always build on top of a good foundation. If you don't have that foundation, you kind of go on wherever the wind takes you. So today's video is there's been a lot of buzz around this word or phrase, abbreviation I should say, and that's a DAO. Okay, and there's really no thorough understanding from the majority of people who do actually talk about it or say it should be implemented or use it as a business idea. A lot of that comes from a place of superficial understanding, and then just sounds good, so go ahead and do it, right? It's a nice buzzword. And there is a lot of money that's coming in this space because of just using the fact that, hey, I'm going to do a DAO. And so I kind of we're not going to go heavy into the weeds. Again, this is just a stepping stone, right? It's dipping your toe in the waters, kind of getting some clarity on certain things, and then jumping in yourself. So I kind of want to go over what a DAO is, give a nice example of it, some pros and cons, and just an interesting thought concept behind, the journey of a DAO. So we're going to get right into it. So first thing is always just a straight up definition, right? And you guys can all Google this. Sometimes when you Google something, you get a bunch of words that don't really make much sense if you're not in the space, right? So what's a DAO? A DAO is a Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So just right there, I mean, even if you just looked at those three words, Decentralized Autonomous Organization, all that decentralized meaning nobody's controlling it. Autonomous means that it just runs as it's required to run without any additional input. It's just automatic, right? And then an organization is just a collection of people. So you got something that's there's no leader. There's nothing at the it's not a top-down type of organization where somebody above is dictating the terms. It's kind of when you think about it, think of it like a set of rules that's kind of set in place that's supposed to be triggered and run automatically. No decision making whatsoever. Okay, in terms of what needs to be executed. And then an organization is just a collection of people. So if we go into the actual, and it says it right here, right? It's an entity with no central leadership. Decisions get made from the bottom up. So everyone gets a say in what kind of needs to be done. And then once it reaches some form of threshold, it's just automatically triggered of which direction it's going to go, right? So it's governed by the community itself, organized around a specific set of rules, enforced on a blockchain. So again, the blockchain is the most important part of this, is that everything, all decisions, the entire history of that particular DAO is public and cannot be changed, right? So it's very transparent. And decisions are made via proposals the group votes on during a specific period. And then again, like I said, once the votes, they hit a certain threshold for certain decisions, it just gets triggered. A more simplified version of all of that really is just, it's a member-owned community without centralized leadership. Now this says a safe way to collaborate with internet strangers and a safe place to commit funds to a specific cause. The one thing here is that it's supposed to be a safe way and a safe place. That's not always the case, doesn't have to be the case. So I just want you guys to really understand that. Not every DAO Just like everything, right? Not everything that's meant to be safe ends up being safe. So kind of keep that in mind. So what are really the pros and cons here of the advantages, disadvantages of a DAO, right? And mention this straight from the definition itself. It's decentralized decision making. No leader, no management, no one slowing down the process. No one, there's no human decision making involved, right? And it's a collection. It's not an individual or a small group of individuals. And so you're very quick and nimble about directions that the DAO can take based on the voting and the decisions that come from that voting, right? So again, community participation and win-win, right? So holders at any level can submit proposals and suggestions for improvement. Efficiency and automation, again, things are just run on automatic once the set of parameters are instilled. Basically, think of it like a contract. It is a contract, right? So DAO has these rules and policies that are set up in a contract format, and there's no guesswork involved. It's just, everything's just automated on how things work. And then transparency, like I mentioned, it's on the blockchain. Everything is viewable by everyone. So that is key. You can't see that in the corporations that exist today, right? Whether you look at the big corporations like Facebook, Amazon, or Google, or any small to medium-sized businesses, all the decision making happens behind closed doors. Even the history of that organization, you don't necessarily get to see any of that or know what it is. So possible shortcomings is manipulation. So what ends up happening here is that every DAO issues certain tokens, right? So you place a certain amount of money in, you get a certain amount of tokens in return, and those tokens can give you voting rights, and other governance type impact. And so if a small group of people have the majority of those tokens, you can definitely get into a place where things start to become not so community driven and more corporation style, right? You have certain people or one who own majority of those tokens, and things start to get manipulated, or can be manipulated anyway. So this Chable rule, I actually had to look this up, because even myself, I haven't really heard of it. It's really built around like a dynasty that continues within certain organizations. So a small group of people that continue to have a hold on a certain organization or certain entity, for years, decades, generations to come. So that's, again, it says possible shortcoming. This isn't every DAO, but if you have a small group, the DAO continues as a legacy DAO, it just continues over generations, and the small group is passing on their tokens, their governance tokens in a certain way. That is a possibility. And then ignorant decision making. I mean, if it's bottom up decision making, so everyone who's invested in it gets to make decisions. If those people aren't familiar or informed on the decisions that are being made, they'll vote whichever way, right? And that could actually lead down to a not so favorable path for the DAO, right? Just because people are not informed. And then always legal risks. Crypto space right now is pretty open. Not much regulation going on, which is a good thing for the most part. But certain things you never know how they're going to play out, and how your government is going to look at anything you set up in a DAO format. So some things to consider. And so when I ran across this was very interesting. So this is actually just a kind of a thought experiment, right? So the definition and everything I've talked about is really making DAOs automated, very, very robotic, right? No decision making in terms of the makeup of the DAO. There's nothing that's human about it, right? It's created and it's in existence. It has a certain set of rules, and it just executes as needed, right? So very robotic, very cold and computerized, right? That's kind of the feeling. I mean, that's kind of what is appealing about it. But I thought this was very interesting because it goes through a life cycle. So it actually treats a DAO as dynamic. It's not a cold robotic format that's just going to run until there's nothing left to run. So it's kind of like it talks about life, death, procreation through it, as well as resurrection. So I just thought it was a very interesting way of thinking about the Dao itself. I just want to run through a couple of things here, right? So their whole concept here, this thought concept, is that DAOs are actually alive, right? So the DAO is built around a unique purpose that's actually shared by a community. And though that shared purpose, it can be tied into the values and the creativity of the community itself. And so when you kind of look at it that way, you can see how the DAOs are more dynamic, right? Because there still is a human involvement in there. It's just execution is based more on code and in an automated fashion. But there's still definitely a human connection and a human element to the DAO. So it's more of a living, breathing entity, right? And so when you create a DAO, here they're saying there's two ways to kind of go about making a DAO. One is you set the rules and the parameters of the DAO right out the gate, and then you kind of build around it. And the second one is more, they call it the exit to DAO, which is you already have a community base. You have a shared set of values, maybe a shared set of goals. And from those values and goals, you create the parameters for a DAO. So they work in reverse of each other, right? So one is building rules and regulations and parameters first, where the money's going to go, how many tokens are you going to get for how much you invested, all that kind of stuff thought of first. And then community gets built after. And then the second one is the community is already there, and then you kind of formulate the allocations in terms of token and capital afterwards. So very interesting how that can play out. And just something to mention here, even within the definition itself, it's an organization of people, right? Whether they're strangers or known or however it may be. Usually, the community now is built over a social media platform, and the most popular is Discord. So Discord is a social media platform where members are getting in, communicating, and just kind of building that community through a format that you don't have to know each other. That's the whole point, right? You get a group of people who don't know each other and jump in, but how do those people get to know each other in the first place? And so typically Discord is the platform that's being used. So just when you go through the life of it, even though it's something that's automated, it's still using up capital, it's still using up, it still has an infrastructure to it, it still has labor to it, right? Somebody has to create that code, somebody has to vote and decide where the DAO is going to move in the future, right? What direction it's going to take. So in order for a DAO to stay alive, it has to have those participants. It has to have money in the actual system, right? Someone has to maintain that code and the contributions, safekeeping of the contributions, maybe adding more of the contributions. So it's a living, breathing thing. And none of those things can actually continue to exist without capital, labor, and infrastructure. That continues. So that's kind of how it's born. And then when they mention procreation, they just mean that the DAO can actually spin off other DAOs. So if a particular DAO has a goal to do, something called X, but it doesn't have a robust governance to it, they can spin off another DAO that focuses only on governance. Sometimes it gets a little bit, in the weeds with that, deep down into the mindset of a DAO. But just know that you can spin out, just kind of like if you think about corporations, you can have parent company and then you have a subsidiary of that. Something to think about, that you can have DAOs that shoot off other DAOs and they kind of still serve the original DAO itself. So that's when they mentioned that. And then death, when we talk about, for something to be alive, it needed, capital, labor, and infrastructure, right? You need someone to maintain the code. You need money in the system for whatever goal or what you're trying to achieve in the DAO. And you need the participants. And if any of those things are not there, the DAO, quote unquote, dies. but it becomes more of a zombie. It's still there in existence. It's just not doing anything. And similar to when you have zombie corporations, they're not profitable. There's no interest in them, but they're still kind of existing. So similar to that. And then resurrection, same way that you can resurrect, a regular company, a regular corporation. You get an injection of capital, more participants come into space, a reinvigorated vision or values of the participants. So you can kind of breathe some life back into that DAO, just like you can breathe life into another corporation. And so really there's an identity around a DAO, right? The life cycle, everything that's kind of changing in a dynamic fashion all has to do with the participants, right? The participants are going to decide the identity, the shared values, the goal. The participants are going to determine the amount of money in the system, right? And the participants will, at the outset anyway, determine the rules. And then going forward, we'll vote on how those rules change. So it's very interesting when you think about a DAO not just being, a smart contract executed platform. There's people involved. There are human interactions involved. And so you get a nice interplay between code and human beings. So that was a very interesting thought process. And then in terms of an example, so there was something, maybe you guys have heard of it. It was a DAO that came up called Constitution DAO. And so their whole value proposition was, we're going to purchase the U.S. Constitution, and from the art dealer Sotheby's, very well known art dealer. And so there was this big thing that spurred on Twitter, and this was just written in November 18th, 2021. So late last year. So there's a lot of buzz around, wow, a DAO is going to be purchasing the Constitution. And just real quick here, I mean, if you look, you get two 25-year-olds, right? And again, Discord. This is where everyone's starting to chat and coming up with these shared communities. Which not at that time, if you look at 8,000 members, and then within 1 week, they raised over 40 million worth of ETH. Okay. So there's that liquidity part, and there's the ability to be quick and nimble, not only with the direction that the DAO moves, but the liquidity, the amount of money that can come into the DAO and be raised. Very, very quick. You don't have to pass through, channels of acceptance or decision making. Everything's kind of set from the outset, and you're good to go. And so, here it is. This is how quick things move, right? So one of the individuals gets a message at a certain time, and was told that, hop on a call in 3 minutes with other people who wanted to buy the Constitution using ETH, right? So everything gets thrown around quick. He invested $1,000. So it's not like you need to invest large sums amount. So if you have lots of participants, in this case was 8,000, you can raise a considerable amount of money with a small portion or a decent size from each participant. And so this one was a little bit different. So I mentioned that DAOs will usually give out tokens, and those tokens are there for voting, but also for it's kind of a way to gatekeep. So if you don't invest money, you don't get any tokens, which means you're not in the DAO. So this one was a little bit different. As long as you're part of the Discord, you could be in the DAO itself. So that's the beauty of these DAOs, is you can dictate whatever you want, however you want. And it doesn't have to follow the regular set of rules. And so they go on to mention Bored Apes Yacht Club, which is a very popular and quite pricey NFT. But in order to be in that community in that Discord, you have to have one of the NFTs. It's like a members only community, right? So you have to own it, which means you have to spend a considerable amount of money to be a part of it. This Constitution DAO, you didn't have to invest in order to be in it. So that was very interesting. And now, they're talking about here's really the key, is that I think people are excited at the prospect of raising a ton of money really quickly to mobilize action for a specific goal, right? Less barriers, less speed bumps, less roadblocks. Get a group of people who believe something, willing to put in some money, and you're good to go, right? What's very interesting is that the DAO, because of, as I mentioned from the beginning, it's kind of a hot topic buzzword that people may jump into without understanding crypto at all. And it says that 13% of the contributors were using ETH for the first time, right? And that 44% of the people who contributed had less than 40 transactions to their name. So either their first time doing it or very, very new in the space, not many interactions with anything else in the crypto space. And so here, this is really what sums it up, right? Large groups of people working together from all over the world, and they don't have to run through, this delay process with corporations of going up the ladder and, decision making and acceptance and all of that. Okay. And so here's a good point too, is that sometimes these buzzwords, whether they be NFTs, whether it be DAOs, we think they're bad things, right? People who are in the space, who are in the know, kind of look down, purists, right? Yeah, that's not real crypto, or apply that to any other technology. Is that those who have adopted it early look down on some of the things that mainstream are going to kind of gravitate towards. But it's not a bad thing if that's how people are getting sucked into the space. Those of us who are in the space, we understand the fundamentals. We know the long-term benefits of crypto and blockchains as a whole. And so whatever it takes for people to get excited and jump in, I have no issues with that, because I know once they're in the space, they're going to understand the value, the true fundamentals, the true value. But if it takes an NFT or a DAO for them to start the education process, nothing wrong with that. Okay. And really, this goes on to talk about some of the legal risks that you don't really know or anything like that. So, there is always that risk. And so there is transparency, there's ownership, but those who can kind of own a larger stake, as I mentioned before, can kind of dictate where the voting or how the voting happens and in which direction the DAO can go. So really depends on, the tokenomics, which is really the distribution of the tokens, how they're distributed, what it takes for it to get distributed. All those things really kind of matter in making sure that it continues to stay decentralized. Okay, so there are hurdles. It's not a perfect system by any means, right? But this was key for me. But once the infrastructure exists, DAOs could transform from groups of crypto-curious users buying niche items and having fun on the internet to serious collective entities that act like companies but can be more nimble and inclusive in their decision making. So however people laugh or think DAOs are not legit, once things have been ironed out in infrastructure and legalities and all those things, which will take time, it's something that's new. But once it does, the way we kind of look at startups as being nimble and more innovative, and the ability to surpass large corporations who are entrenched in their decision making and the systems and the protocols and just dragging their feet and pleasing people and the whole top-up structure. But once these DAOs are ready to go and the blueprint is written, there's no stopping them. And so that is what's very exciting, how a group of individuals who don't know each other but have a shared goal and a shared vision can act quickly on that vision. So I hope you guys kind of got a little bit of clarity here on what DAOs are, how they're important, some of their pitfalls, and just have a little bit of fun with it. That's all I encourage all of you to do, is to jump in, learn a little bit, read some things, not some headlines and kind of dismiss things. Jump in, do your own research, and make your decisions and see what comes of it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.